March 26, 2025 to order. I'll start with a roll call. Brooke, Kaisa, Corey, Ann, here, and myself is here. Item 2 is improving our academic achievement and accountability through data-driven practices. Item A is the 24-25 budget review.
First up, all right. These are our budget reports that we typically show, so you'll see that it goes through January, even though we are almost all the way through March. It's important to just look at a complete month. So you can see, we'll take a look at expenses first. We like to look at where we are percentage-wise year to date. Again, everything is lining up. If you scroll down, Trish, we know that we have the on the right there in the middle of the page. Obviously, we're over on those budget lines. Those, talk about this almost every meeting. Those are the buses that we have bought in this fiscal year that were pushed back production wise, and that we finally did get into this year. So if you want to flip over to revenues. Revenues look a lot different than expenses, obviously, because of the timing and how we receive revenues. It's the timeline that we're bound to by the state, and then obviously when we receive our taxes in. This spring, we'll start to receive a lot more revenues. For example, our equalization aid, that $9 million budgeted, if that went at 3.6, we just received another payment here on Monday, on the 24th. So when you see the end of March, when we do that report, you'll see that increase quite a bit. And then obviously, as we get towards the end of the year, we book out the rest of the taxes that we are looking to receive.
I had one question and I didn't ask ahead of time, which I'm sorry, it's not the protocol, but that 971, the refund from prior year. Explain that. I know it comes up from time to time.
It's kind of like a, I'm gonna say it's a kit. That's not a catch-all, but it's if we have something that, should have came back to us last year, if we had like maybe a refund that we received after July 1st and it should have been in last year, but we can't push it in last year because we closed out that last fiscal year, we'll drop it into that 971.
So the minus 56% would just say we haven't gotten it this year, we're not expecting it to come through, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Yep. All right. Anything else? All right, well,
Yes, there's a lot of slides, actually. So just wanted to go through a budget update now that we have more information because we've met. So as you know, right, we always start with our core. What's our mission, what's our vision, what's the work that we're all working on together. And you know me well enough to know that points of pride are important. I think as we look to our most recent state report card, we're ranked in the top 25% of Wisconsin school districts. That's pretty awesome. Student engagement wise, we offer over 60 clubs and activities, giving students lots of opportunities to feel like they belong. With 233 employees, we're one of the largest employers in Osceola, and I think we often forget that this is a really big organization in our town. We have a highly educated team. Of that 233, we have 64 staff members that have advanced degrees, bringing some significant expertise to these classrooms. And we also have hometown pride. 42 staff members, 18% of our team are proud Osceola graduates who come back and serve the community, which is pretty amazing. And then we have a heart for students. You know, our staff show up every day with purpose. You're gonna see 2 staff members on here. And those of you know, maybe that these are bus drivers. And just a couple of stories, when we were at the final basketball game that the boys played, Steve Burke was there. And after the game, he was walking out and I was like, hey Steve, how you doing? He's like, kind of sad. I had all the next games on my calendar. He was ready to go to state, boys. And I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. He's like, yeah, but track's coming up. Got those on my calendar too. So right, again, that's a bus driver who doesn't have students on that basketball team that's coming to cheer those kids on. That's amazing. And then Jim is on there because, as some of you know, if you have kids who ride a bus, we did some bus route changes. And he went on that Monday that we had in service to all 5 of his new family's homes to make sure that they knew what time he would be there. It could be because he drives faster than his time, but.
My kid almost missed the bus because it was supposed to be later, but he was still there on time.
But again, and Jim just said that in passing, and neither of those 2 men would want their pictures up here. And I debated whether I was gonna put them up, but right, we notice, we acknowledge and extend, and that's really important.
Wait till Jim hears about it.
And again, purpose of this time that we're spending together looking through these slides is to support transparency, foster accountability, and and be sure that we're being thoughtful as we make these decisions, because we're all a team working together, and we need to make sure that we're representing correctly. The goal that you see there is the goal that this presentation focuses on. So very quick recap. At this time last year, we talked about the three big rocks: financial projections, decline in enrollment, and an aged OES. This year, we're gonna talk about those exact same things. So what's happened since last year? This is a very brief summary. This will not be everything that's happened in our school district since last year. But starting with, we had an unsuccessful facilities referendum. We implemented $1.3 million in reductions. Some were right-sizing the district, right, because we had declining enrollment, and some were due to the fact that we knew a deficit was coming. And we also reconfigured our district buildings. So we moved second grade to OIS, and we moved fifth grade to middle school. We also this fall did a survey of our community to see their level of support for capital and operational referendums. And our survey results indicated a low likelihood of success for an operational referendum in particular. It was too close to call, if you remember, for capital. And just continuing on that, and then you, the board, carefully reviewed all the scenarios and determined that moving forward with an operational wasn't the best course of action. And if you'll remember the whys, just to bring us all back to the same place. If we failed a referendum, we could risk taking a significant penalty. And the uncertainty in the state funding, which that uncertainty still exists, and we'll talk more about that. So as a result, right, we decided that we needed to reduce. We looked at our fund balance, we looked at spreadsheets that at least $500,000 to maintain some financial stability. And so depending on what the biennium budget does to support public education, we may have to go into our fund balance to balance our budget. So we all know that. Just talking about the reductions from last year. Again, 10 certified staff, 2 administrative positions, and 4 support staff. So that's 16 people who are no longer coming to work here in the district. There were many shifts. Like it was literally like a puzzle last year as we made the moves across the district and shift people. An example would be like the reading specialist position. We hired within our current staff. She was an interventionist, and we didn't replace that position. But it was super necessary for us to be able to support the implementation of Act 20, which was an unfunded mandate, which requires a lot of testing and plans and data tracking. So just to give you an example as we kind of went through there. Any questions on that information? No? Okay, so Big Rock 1, right? Financial projections, state funding formula, created back in 1993, is no longer meeting the needs it was designed to support. And it might if it still existed as it was intended. So just wanted to do that. So you know me, I try to simplify things as easy as I can. So public school funding. So think about 1993, what were you doing in 1993? Okay. 32 years ago. I was starting my career in education in 1993. So that year was the year revenue limits were set. And they were set based on, as we all know, whatever you spent the year before. So if you were a high spending district, that's where you started. If you were a low spending district, that's where you started. There was no science behind it. That's just what it was. And then with that 3-legged stool, it was 2/3 funding from the state was what the promise was, and then inflationary increases. So if these 3 stool legs all happened, then public education would be funded. So the revenue limits are still in place. The inflationary increases were abandoned in 2009. And then 2/3 funding was abandoned in 2003. The other part that was written in, and please understand this is a very simplified version, you all know that, but operating referendums were to be used only in extreme cases. So that was written like into the whole revenue limit language.
In 1993.
In 1993. So here's our history. So before 2017, all Osceola referendums were to issue debt. So that's why those 2 buckets are there. They're very different buckets, right? You can't get debt issued and then do a capital project and pay for operating. They're very separate buckets. So in April 17, April 19, April 20, April 22, and April 24, we've gone to our voters. So in 8 years, we've gone to our community 5 times for funding. And I think we felt this in our survey results, right? That referendum fatigue. I think this is equally as important. So in the fall of 2024, 138 school districts out of the 421 that exist here we're asking for referendum dollars, looking to authorize $4.4 billion. It's a lot of money. And again, I would also say, right, remember it was supposed to be only in extreme circumstances. So again, just focusing on operating referendums in Wisconsin, this is a new chart that's available on the DPI website. They're really trying to simplify charts so people can understand school funding because it's such a complex gig. But look at 1995, how many operating referendums there were versus 2024. And we know that there were, however many there were in the fall, and there's another 93. And it's super important to remember that these ballot questions ask people to increase their taxes. And so when some communities say yes, and other communities say no, we're now creating a huge gap in funding in public schools. So this was pretty interesting. So today, almost 20% of spending in our schools comes from self-imposed property tax increases in communities. That does not sound like only extreme cases to me, like in 1993. And I think it's also super important for us to think again, like, right, we don't have operating dollars that we're using to support our system. It started in 23-24.
And so when we talk about referendums and talking about the state funding, brings us right back around to talking about our budget and our forecasting out. So this is a slide that we've seen multiple times over the last couple of months. Again, looking at what our budget would be with no new revenue coming in at the state level. You can see that 1.2, and it just continues to get larger as we go out to 2029.
And also that circle, if we hadn't made reductions, we would be over 2 million where that circle is.
This is another repeat slide. We showed this slide at our annual meeting, but I think it's important to look at both on the expenditure side and the revenue side. Expenditures, again, noting that 73% of our expense budget is salary and benefits. So when you start talking about reductions and where the most impact comes from, unfortunately, it does come from that salary and fringe pot. And then when you look at our revenue sources, we are, obviously receiving a little bit more state revenue than local revenue at this point, but you will start, as you continue to have operating referendums and schools continue to go back and ask for more money, that starts to shift, right? So we were more state than we were local, even in the last few years, but now we've started to get more and more where we're having local revenues rather than state revenues.
And certainly not 2/3 funding like 1993.
This is another slide that we have pulled from DPI, and it's just a great illustration that shows that on our revenue limit, we're allotted a per pupil amount, and we are at 11,325. The state average is 11,976. We're still below the state average by 5.44%. And if you look on the top 3 portion of the screen, that is what the top 3 school districts in the state of Wisconsin are allowed to levy per student on their revenue limit. So the top one is $24,949. That's over twice the amount that we are allowed to levy per student.
Where are those 3 places?
They're listed right below.
Oh, in the state.
Washington Islands off the tip with Door County. I don't know where Geneva is, to be honest with you. I have 0 idea where from. I think Geneva is over by north of Beloit, I think, and Lake Geneva is, I think, what it actually is. Yeah. So Advocates for Public Education, they want all school districts to be within 10% of each other. So think about that. Think about the slide that here, when we talked about going to referendums and districts continue to fail and fail and fail, that keeps getting wider and wider and wider, but they're looking, to move it towards we're all within 10% of each other. This is a timeline. We've talked a lot about we're in this cycle right now, right? We're in this biennium budget cycle. This is a good illustration of the timeline. What happens from start to finish in this biennium. We're right now, obviously, in that February-March portion where the governor has released his budget. Now it has gone to the other side, and they're looking at, they're taking a look at it. The Joint Finance Committees will be in April and May, and then June it's supposed to go back to the Assembly and State. Governor theoretically is supposed to sign it in July. We don't know if that's going to happen. We've been told that it probably likely won't be July, so for us, that's really hard, right, as a school district? We can budget our expenses because we know what our expenses are going to be, but we don't have the other side of that formula. We cannot budget our revenue because we don't know what the state's gonna give us. So that makes it very hard to have our operating budget starting July first.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it. There's only literally 1 year, the second year of the biennium budget, that you actually know what you're getting to build a real budget on.
It's actually really infuriating,
It is.
cause I
Like, give me a
couldn't
5-year
manage
cycle.
my family budget like that,
No.
like, it doesn't work.
No.
And it doesn't fall within that time frame. So even though, theoretical, if it fell within the time frame, you could.
In
It never
January,
does.
if in
Yes.
January we knew something, we could potentially
Try.
plan better, yeah.
Governor Evers proposed a budget on February 18th, and this chart is just showing what we would look like compared to inflation if everything in his budget were to go through. You know, this is best case scenario, right? So if you look at that, and then the inflation index line, if everything he proposed in his budget went through, we would be going actually above that inflation index line now, where we've lagged behind it and actually dipped way negative below it in 11-12. So this is a perfect scenario, right? If we were to get everything that he asked for, likely won't happen, but it's just a good illustration to show that we would finally be above that inflation index. This is just another way to look at that previous slide. It's actually putting dollars to the lag that we have. So from 2013 forward, you can see we're at $2,381 per pupil behind inflation, and you take that math and take that out, and we're about $3.4 million behind. That's 1 year. Now, Dr. Saz and I were just talking, that doesn't take into account every year that we've been behind inflation and multiplying it out, so you have to add in all of those years that we have lagged behind and what that would mean.
And you also can look back in time and think about when the inflationary increase in 2/3 funding were happening, and districts were fully funded, why they had money to be able to do larger maintenance projects as they moved along, versus when you're spending a deficit, you don't have any money to be able to do those. And that's really unfortunate because we have huge investments in buildings.
A hot topic in this biennium has been special education costs, and as you guys know, because we've talked about this a lot, this is a legal and binding portion of our budget that we have to have. We have to, fund our special education programs, and I think the most impactful thing on this slide is showing that it's never been at 100%, and I think we should all agree that this is a program and mandate that we should have funded at 100%. It has for many years been around 30%. You can see a little uptick in after 1920, it was supposed to go to 33%. That 33% is sum sufficient, meaning that it doesn't mean that we get 33% reimbursement back from the state. It's based off of your total expenses from the previous year. There's a formula that's involved. So when you move to the next slide, you can see historically what we have gotten reimbursement from the state. We've never gotten 33%. Highest we've received is 32.4. Usually we're around, I would say 28%, we probably average that. They're looking to move towards some certain amount, meaning that if it is 33%, we get 33% reimbursement. So from a budgeting perspective, obviously we'd like that to be higher. We'd like it to be 100%. We'd like it to be 60. We'd like it to be higher than 33. I know that they're talking about increasing that, but we don't know what that's going to be. But if they move it to some certain, it just means it's a definitive amount of money.
And again, in your real life budget, if someone told you we're just gonna take 8%, and you just need to move it over someplace else, you'd be like, no, thank you, but that's what we're doing. And this is a super important program for kids, that's why we have it.
This is a new graph that DPI started putting out, I think probably within the last 2 weeks as the education conversations have ramped up at the federal level. And it's just illustrating what we have total, what we've received total federal funding. That's a combination of our food service, our flow through our Title I dollars, so almost $1 million in federal funds, and then they take that and they equate it to what that would look like FTE wise, even full-time educators. That'd be 6 full-time educators if we were to lose that federal funding, and then about 6% of our total revenue limit.
Any questions about the budget pieces? Okay, right, we know school funding is tied to student enrollment, so fewer students mean fewer dollars, and as enrollment declines, so does the financial support we receive. So simply put, declining enrollment leads to declining funding, which impacts opportunities, right? Pretty self-sufficient. So why are we declining enrollment? We've talked about this multiple times at this table. The birth rates are declining in the state of Wisconsin, and actually in the United States. You've seen this chart multiple times. It's gonna take a minute before it starts changing, but the gray arrow over there is Osceola. And when you look at the chart, it's the districts declining. The more they decline, the more purple they turn. So you can just watch what happens, and at the top it tells you what year it is. So you can see Osceola slowly turning to the purple in 16-17. All the way to 2024. The other piece, 75% of students in Wisconsin are located in 30% of the districts. So when you look at our state, right, and you think about city and suburb, rural and towns create a chunk of our state. So the projections, this is new off of the applied population site, from 24 to 2033, what's our actual, and then what's the projection for public schools. And then if you look at the bottom, you can see even by age grouping, that there's gonna be an 8% K-5 decline, 6-8 4%, and 9-12 7.6. Always important to look at, because a lot of times we hear things like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to homeschool. Well, if you look at the change from 05-06 to 23-24, you can see homeschool, it's a 1% shift. It is an increase for sure, but it's 1%. And then you look at, there's the non-charter, the charter, non-voucher, and voucher schools. And again, these are all off of the DPI data map pages. So then bringing it here, right, there's our district, 125 square miles. So this is the 24-25 second Friday count in January. And then just to give a little history and perspective, because that's always super important. In 10-11, OES was at its largest with 497 students. I don't know how many of them are half-day 4K that are counted in there. I just don't know that information. 06-07, OIS was the largest with 417 in 3 grades. In 08-09, OMS was the largest with 3 grades at 424. And then in 08-09, OHS actually was the largest at 597 with 4 grades. And then the district's largest was 9-10 with 1893. So just to do some simple math, here's your 19-20, and then the 24-25 with the total student starting head counts. So we're down 268 students in that time period. And then when you do the simple math, like Shannon and I talked about, you do the 268 times 11,650, again, $3 million. And you can see where we're at just population-wise. I think it's super important always to be able to say, where are we at? Because I've had questions about, well, how many students with IEPs do we have? Well, we're below the state average. How many economically disadvantaged students do we have? Again, below the state average. And how many ELL students do we have? Below the state average. And the reason they pull these groups out is because generally there's some kind of special programming that goes to support those students. So here's a different look, right? Because numbers matter. So if you look at this chart, you will see the January 2024 count compared to the January 2025. And what I'm trying to show here very clearly is when you look at the pluses and minuses, you don't see a full section of students that are missing from any grade level. 11 coming out of 2nd grade, and then you have 9 coming into 12th grade. But a word that we're using around here, we call it the graduation effect. So an example is this year we're gonna have 128 students graduating. That's super fun. And then we're gonna have about 82, yes, in 4K. So our enrollment impact is 46 students, automatic negative 46. So nobody moved out, nobody left. But if you do that times the 11,650, That's $535,000. Automatic in 1 year difference.
Is that taking into account that the 4K is only 0.6 versus 1, right?
No, this is, yeah,
So
this is the simple math.
I know,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Right.
it's bigger than that.
It's actually bigger than that if we broke it down, and it also doesn't take into account either, Jen, the 3-year rolling average.
Right.
And those kinds of pieces, so this is just the very simple version. And then, just again, because we like to talk through numbers and make sure that people understand we are being very cognizant in planning, because some reductions need to happen based on enrollment, right? It's not, we just don't keep everything rolling forward. So if you look at the January count in 2024 to the projection for 25-26, you can see building across, and then you can see by grade level. And so what we do as a team, the admin team and I sit down and we look at how many sections do we have at each grade level, and what is reasonable based on what we call typical core ranges in Osceola. Our families like small class sizes. I know the board likes small class sizes, but we also have to be very reasonable in how we manage our dollars. So the conclusion on enrollment, we know there's declining birth rates, we know there's increased educational choices, we have fewer students, and most operation expenses still remain. It's not as if we get smaller, we close down classrooms or close down buildings. Any questions on that one? Okay, Big Rock 3, H Elementary School, right? Following the unsuccessful referendum last spring, we as a team decided, right, it's imperative to figure out how we're gonna use this building most efficiently and maintain its life. It's also important to note, and this is really important, right? We have other aging facilities that need attention. It's not just the elementary school. And it's important, right, that we all remember that we're not overlooking the issues. We simply don't have the dollars to address them fully. So yeah, they're on a list, but are they getting attention? No, because capital referendums remain our main enemy. If you'll think about the last time we did big projects here, we did a $10 million capital referendum, and that's how we got the secure entrances, and that's how we did some other work around this district. And Fund 46, as much as Jan and I love Fund 46, because I think savings account is great, if you're operating in a deficit, you don't have dollars to put in Fund 46. And we know our buildings are more than structures, they're spaces that support learning, safety, and community pride. We have amazing, amazing buildings, and people are always, they're absolutely dumbfounded by how old they are and how great they look. Okay, so now we're gonna jump into the 25-26 outlook. So we're assuming no additional dollars in the biennium budget. We know that there's a decline in enrollment. And we know we have about a $1.5 million deficit. So what are our strategies? You saw the goal, right? Collaboration. We're talking to each other. We're talking to people we work with. We have a really dedicated group of staff here that have ideas that they share. We're looking at attrition as positions are vacated. We're taking a look at the options. We're not just posting positions. And we know we're gonna have to utilize our fund balance, right? We've talked about that at this table. Like our policy says 20 to 30%, and last year we were over 30. Okay, so we have more information than we did about 2 months ago. We know what our wage increase was for staff, because we're gonna take care of staff. We're gonna be talking about stipend for teachers at the end of this salary scale here during the meeting. We know that declining enrollment continues to impact our outlook. We know we needed to reduce at least a minimum of 500,000. And we know that we're focusing on reductions through attrition. This is just an example. We have 8 current vacancies that are under evaluation that we're talking about as a team. And our priority, of course, is to minimize the impact on students while being realistic about class sizes and the services we provide and staff capacity. An example would be during the shifts last year, we took a lot of people who had been interventionists and now they're classroom teachers. So the work of what happens for interventions is happening by our classroom teachers. So that's more work on their shoulders. So it's just important to remember that capacity is a real thing. It's not just, oh, okay, we're good. We didn't add it because we didn't need it. We added it because we needed it. And then we're committed to being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. So as we move forward, building configurations. So here's one option we would like you to consider. We'd like to move first grade to the intermediate school. There isn't room for 4K in K at the intermediate school. However, there is room for first grade. And this would be the configuration that we would consider. Here's what it would look like. So if we move first grade over there, the elementary school would have 162 students, and again, right, there's gonna be move-ins and move outs, so this is at this moment in time. The intermediate school would have 341, which is over 60 less than what their max has been in the past. The middle school would be at 395, and the high school at 466. Right, the benefits, there's less congestion at OES. We address the declining enrollment proactively. It prevents underused classrooms at one of our newest buildings. It's a more comfortable environment, there's air conditioning. It increases the idea of collaboration and resource sharing. We have 4 grades working together. Specialists, it allows us to look at where our specialists are as far as shared staff and not needing to travel as much because they would be more in one building and more centralized. We could reduce some redundancies and maximize some expertise. And of course, some vertical collaboration. Some challenges, it's change. Change is hard. We're gonna have more traffic at OIS. Staff relocations, that always impacts morale. Requires needs for training. And the configuration of the district will be different. Here's some cost savings that are already in motion in the teaching and learning. At OHS, we had a departure of a business teacher. We're gonna move forward with 1 teacher in the business department. However, please know, like, the high school staff are amazing, and they've worked with the business current teacher that's going to be there and other departments to say, what offerings can we still offer kids? We don't want to reduce the offerings that we have available. We have to reduce by some, but what can we shift to a social studies teacher where they might have one spot where they can pick something up? So looking where licensure allows. French is another. When we had our French teacher leave, we did not, weren't able to locate a in-person instructor. So last year we offered online, so basically a big screen for the person coming into the classroom. And it's okay, it's not great. So this year, when the freshmen enrolled at the high school, French was not an option for them. So we're phasing it out carefully, making sure we're taking care of the kids that took French and want to have that 4-year experience. But that will also be a reduction. In transportation, we reduced 2 bus routes as of March 18th. It was kind of like the first day of school all over again. Not a favorite, but also, you know, in talking to Steve, and Steve was like, we can do this, and it will save us money. And we didn't have drivers to drive those 2 routes. So our mechanic and our transportation director every day were driving these 2 routes. So we made that happen. In building and grounds, we had a vacancy of a custodian, and we have reconfigured as of March 18th or 17th, and there are people who are covering in different ways. We also switched paper towel dispensers. So you wanna see something funny, it's battery operated, now it's not, so you see kids going,
They noticed that.
over and over, and you're like, you have to pull it. Yeah, but it saves money in batteries, like for real, like, so big and small, it matters. In technology, we transitioned staff devices at the elementary school from Windows laptops to more effective, cost-effective Chromebooks, because a lot of what they project is through Google. And then we are shifting from 1-to-1 iPads at OES, which if you'll recall during COVID time, we went 1-to-1 because we needed to have access. We are gonna go back to classroom sets of 5 to 10 per room, and also have some available in the library for checkout. So it will look different there, but we won't be making purchases of iPads for the rotation this year. And our fleet will be much less. And then we're also doing a software review. Some programs were once free during COVID, now have costs. Are people using them, and are they valuable? So those are just some pieces. So, next steps. Okay, reconfigure 4K4, 1 for OIS. What are your thoughts? What are your wonders?
talked with Susan, thinking lunches, how that will all function and work, and
We talked to Susan, and we talked to Steve, and we talked to Hunter, but that's about where it stops. And that's what's really hard when we're in conversations like these. It's not that you don't wanna have the conversation, but you also don't wanna stir the pot to the point of people being really, really anxious if we don't wanna make a move.
There'll be room to grow there in the future, if class sizes do increase.
Yes, there's room enough for every grade level to have 5 classrooms. There is not room for kindergarten or 4K.
What's the legal requirement for bathrooms for those grades? Is there a legal requirement? Or is it that's?
I don't
the
have
same as
anybody
for
to look
kids?
to in this room that would know the answer to that. Did you see me? I was like,
Sorry, just popped in my head. I know best practice, and I know when we've done plans and designs, we've put in bathrooms, and we know that's what's best for kids. We have no space in the district that has a bathroom per classroom or a shared bathroom between 2 classrooms. So
And
we
in
can-
first grade, that's not typically.
Right, first grade not, but kindergarten,
Kindergarten and 4K, yes, from understanding according to the architects, yes.
I don't know that it's a state requirement, but those classrooms have it. It's just a nice thing, and I understand it because some of the 4K are not.
even kindergarten, or not. You don't have the staff to, you probably live in a bathroom all day, so.
Right, and in order to reconfigure, right, we need to engage with all departments to the point Dave said, and people internally to get the plan moving forward, because there's always a lot of pieces whenever you talk about transition. I can tell you that the only grade level that didn't move last year, classrooms, was first grade.
this might seem silly, but are we able so that people aren't having breakfast at 9 AM? Or, I'm sorry, lunch at 9 AM or like at 2 PM? Are we able to make it work for reasonable time for the kids?
So as you're thinking about that, we also may need to explore a Fund 38 or a state trust fund loan or a local bank that allows us to borrow money to cover some of our maintenance costs. An example, and you'll hear Jeff talk about this, the tennis courts, we have living pieces that are out there. I won't take the wind out of his sails, so I did go walk it. Not a safe place for kids to play tennis on the far side anymore. We'll use our makeup closure days, right, for moving and preparing, if we choose to move forward. And then communicate reductions and attrition internally. We're gonna be doing that over the next week. Communicate with staff that are impacted. And then, of course, informing families to move forward with the reconfiguration.
How many, if we move first grade to OIS, does that mean second, third, fourth, we're moving again for the second year?
We haven't gotten that far, but some will. Because you wanna build a building that has the kids that need to come in first and land in the right places.
And you want the
And you don't
grades to
want-
be together?
Correct. Good news is they've already moved, so they have less to move.
Very big one.
Just
I
saying.
hope they find that.
Just saying. Like, I mean, if you think we haven't talked about it, we also believe as a team that this is the right move for the district, because we need OES to last as long as it can. And OIS is a great building. Let's use what we have and really be proactive in maintaining our design.
But it also has its own problems too. It needs a new boiler, or boilers, and it needs a new roof,
We replaced one boiler at OES.
but not OIS.
It's not the end of life yet.
Right,
Mhm.
but, I mean,
Oh, for sure.
it's not like we're buying a new house and we're saying, okay, everybody in, I mean, we're going to the rental zone, you know,
Well,
Like,
it's
it's the newest
21-year-old
building.
building.
Right, it's
But
a
still-
21-year-old building,
Correct.
so, and I wasn't on the board and I wasn't even in high school when this building was constructed and planned, and it was not planned for elementary kids, it was planned for, I mean, that's when 4th grade was down at the old high school, when it was being built, right?
It was
I mean,
planned for intermediate school.
It was
kids.
planned for intermediate school kids, so
But
it's
most
not ideal,
districts-
but.
Most districts don't call it intermediate
Right.
school.
Correct.
we're very, very special in having an intermediate school, for sure. Okay. And then you just know me, right? So as we begin this deeply important work of reconfiguration and reductions, we need to do so with full awareness of the weight it carries. These decisions are heavy and they come with real human impact. They'll affect people we care about and they'll touch the hearts of our culture. This will hurt and there's no way around it. And yet, we know the step we must take to remain financially responsible and protect the future of our schools. This is hard, but we are not without hope. We are not without strength. Together with honesty, courage, and care, we'll face the challenges and move forward. And on the other side, we'll continue to be the kind of district that makes our students, staff, and community proud. I think we've proven that. We've been working in some really tough times together as a team, sitting at this table. And we still continue to find the good. And that's whether you look for negative or you look for positive, you're gonna find it. And of course, I always end here, because there's our people. This is why we do this. So what are your questions, thoughts, wonders? We just wanted to get everybody in the same space, up to speed at the same place.
It's not an Osceola problem. There are many districts right now doing the same exact discussion. Some districts have talking to some teachers from other districts that actually caught them off guard that that's where their district is at right now. And they're doing the same thing, like through saving money going into next year by not filling some vacancies that are coming up. And I've been in communication with some people, they're like, yeah, I can't believe we're not gonna fill a teacher in our math department over here. Yeah, that's where we are at. And I don't know, I just appreciate all the work and thought that has gone into this, because it isn't easy. When we asked you guys to, nothing is off the table. We have to look at everything. Is it ideal? No. But I also like the fact that the least amount of kids that we have in the elementary building, I think, is a positive, what we can make actually happen. I feel for every teacher that's gotta either move again, possibly move, or isn't here next year. It sucks, it really does. And I just also wanna say to any staff that is like nervous about this or thinking like, oh my gosh, this district, again, this is not just our district, like this is a lot of districts right now going through all the same thing. But again, thank you for everybody for all the hard work and thought put into this.
Change is hard.
Well, and I feel often, just like a conspiracy theorist, when I say, well, the state government's not giving us our money, that feels like an excuse. So that's why when you see me build like a three-legged stool, it's because I need to understand, like, is it an us problem? Is it an us community problem, or like, it's like an all of us problem, because the more disparity that we have with what we can offer. Because the truth is, if the state doesn't come through, and we're sitting here again, and pretend we go to operating referendum and it fails, like, Osceola won't look the same anymore. Like, we're doing what we can to keep what we value and have kids have an amazing experience. I sat last night in the CAPS presentations, just like you did, Corey, and we have kids at the Osceola Medical Center and at our local dentist, and they're learning about OT and PT and all the things they wanna do in their future, right? That's our business teacher that does that. Not the one that's leaving, but, right? But her capacity is gonna be stretched too, right? Because she wants to keep the things, so it's real, it's very, very real. It's not like I walk away from here and go like, oh, this is easy breezy, we got this. And I also want Osceola to be a destination. I want people to pick our community for the schools, like so many people do.
That's what I think as I go through all this, think of the cuts that were made, reductions, whatever you wanna call them last year. And what we've asked you to create this year. I'm honestly very impressed with you and the admin team, the whole staff. Because to me, yes, it's a lot of change and there are some things that really hurt. But I'm really impressed with how we're still going to be Osceola. We can't maybe necessarily take a lot more. But I'm really impressed with how, I don't wanna say it doesn't affect the kids, cause clearly it does. But I'm impressed with what you've come up with.
And then no stone was left unturned, like Hunter, bring us back to just pull power rather than battery.
I know.
It shows that the district is like looking at everything.
Every
Like the staff is looking so that it is least impactful. I mean, kids don't wanna have to.
I heard all about it now, they say Scott on the toilet paper and the paper towels. Scott.
Oh, he has two. so
Oh.
that's right.
I've never thought that before.
It says it on there now, okay, so, but it was like, yeah, my toilet paper has a new name, his name is Scott, and I was like, oh, great, love that. But that's an 11-year-old boy for you, but again,
Turns out we have that word too.
yeah, do you?
We did get new toilet paper, I did not put that on there, but it's.
It was, I figured it was a package deal.
You do know that's one of the things Connor came home with after college, but you can tell Connor later. One thing he asked for Christmas was toilet paper, because the toilet paper at college is not working for him. So the kids will notice. And if you know Connor, bring him some toilet paper for Christmas.
And I do need to tell you, it's very difficult to have conversations in public about big changes. And knowing that only the people sitting in this room right now know information. So that's why I'm putting pressure a little bit on we would like to move forward as a team with moving first grade. And starting to have conversations with private people, including those people. Because it doesn't feel good to know that somebody like Bruce Fry doesn't know this conversation's happening and we're sitting in public right now having it. It is, it actually makes my mouth dry and uncomfortable because collaboration is our power in Osceola, and during these times, it's turning that power.
I think speaking as an individual, I certainly don't wanna speak on the other, 4 that are sitting here at the table with me. I have full trust and faith in you and your admin team and the collaboration and the thought that's been behind it. I think that what is very evident, what we just saw was a lot of thought and consideration and how can we do this, and when you all come to the table to think about what's best for our kids, that's gonna lead us to the best outcomes for them. And so, the other piece that you're doing is being very fiscally transparent with our tax dollars, and that's important to us, both of those avenues, right? We're here as stewards for our children and the students of our district, but we're also here as the steward of the tax dollars, and so I don't see any objection in doing that. I'm thankful that I don't have a new first grader next year, cause it was hard last year to leave this meeting and go home and tell my now 5th grader that he would be moving to a new building and he'd miss out on his last year of YS and all of that. And there's a lot of camaraderie that comes with that, but we knew that that was what was best for the district, and he's had a great year, so you too, you have the same grade I do, so.
Yeah, she's right there, I
Yeah.
got to hear about it quite a bit, but I wanna echo what Brooke is saying, like, I'm all behind the plan. I have so much faith in the team that we have here, and I will not question this, it makes sense. Again, it's not what I would ever have hoped for, like, we have to look at stuff like this, but we do, that's our job, and you guys, I think, have laid it out great, and I think we have to get it out there immediately, so, yeah, I'm all for going on with it.
I echo the same thing. I know change is hard, and the uncertainty for some people, and they may think first grade is too young at OIS, but, when you look at the bigger picture, and even us just cutting 500,000, look at the deficit we still have, and it's gonna be bigger in 25, 26 and out. So, I know it's hard. The conversations that you're gonna have are hard, but your team has done a good job in coming up with this plan. And I support it as well.
I also know that our teachers will teach just as great in the intermediate school as they did in the elementary school.
Yeah, they'll step up.
Yes, they will.
I agree.
Absolutely will.
Let's move as forward as we can. You've been diligent, this was great. I like the stool. I like the visuals, like, I think that's helpful.
I think it's important that you've done a good job of trying to get to the public to explain a lot of that stool or other references you've made to understand why this isn't just an Osceola thing, and I'm hoping that's starting to help resonate in here.
Could have just said that we have to, or we are moving forward with making these cuts, but the school puts it into a bigger perspective, and then hopefully a better understanding of why we have to make these choices.
I mean, like Jan said, change is never easy, but I work with the first grade team every day, and if anybody can handle moving, it'll be okay. You gotta do what you gotta do for the kids.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else?
Did that bring, this is not a question I should ask, you put me on the spot. But I will. This is what I'm thinking at the moment. Did that put us well over $500,000 was kind of what you have planned, or are we kind of just hitting that mark, or do you not know right now, and that's totally fair if you don't?
No, but I think we'll wait to have our conversation.
Sounds good.
What do you see about elementary school? How's that gonna look there, and what's gonna happen to the empty rooms? I mean, obviously, people aren't gonna move into those empty rooms, right?
Right, I think we have to have a conversation and hear from our people, what they think is best, and then look at it from that perspective, because, right, there's so many implications. We just talked about, we reduced a custodian, right? So how does this help that? So just trying to really think about how everything fits together, and you don't ever wanna make too many plans. If y'all are like, no, we're not doing that, that's just off the table, then, because that, right, it's all gonna impact all of the other conversations that we have. So we haven't went that far. I can guarantee you that there have been lots and lots of conversations about what could be, but we really do value the community voice of our people too. So we need to make sure we give them time to speak through too. Sorry.
No,
Sure, more to come. Let's move us on to item 3, which is administrative and department reports, and I'm gonna bump AHS and OMS athletic directors and social department reports, is that okay? This bump says yes, okay.
Who wants to start us off? Jeff, Trevor?
I'll start out.
Do you wanna introduce yourselves? Just
Can you go to the next slide? I'm Trevor Schultz, at middle school athletic director, but this is kind of what we talked about last year, with our numbers are staying pretty steady for kids coming out. Shifting a little bit, maybe, from volleyball and cross country with the girls. This year probably was our smallest girls basketball teams we've had, maybe in the last 10 years, but I think we have more girls that are going into wrestling, and I think we have girls that are playing hockey. So more options for that, but, otherwise we're pretty consistent across the board. Very fortunate with coaches so far that have been able to fill the positions this year. We got some work to do next year a little bit, but, so far so good. I think the $50 registration fee is a decent amount of money to charge kids for what they get. They get a nice season, their football program's 7 to 8 games, and the kids in volleyball, and they're playing 10 to 15 games a year, just enough without being too much. So, very fortunate, the jersey rotation, we're in good shape there. A few things here and there, but nothing that was our budget. Won't be asking for any more money for that, but very fortunate still to get officials. We have people on staff and some people around the area that are getting back and officiating, so far so good with that. And our BFS program that we run in the morning was solid again this year. We had about 50 kids before Christmas, and so they're coming in before school and working out. Had Nate Demeling, James Gillespie, and Devin Stingline and myself run that program for the middle school kids, so. Pretty solid year so far, I think. We start track next Monday if it doesn't snow. We'll see what happens, but. I don't know. Any questions about that? I'd like to add ice hockey on there, but that's not gonna happen. Co-op with St. Clair Falls. Schmitty, what do you think?
leaving out of this.
No.
I mean, we got some St. Croix boys that
I don't know,
they keep on the summer stuff.
build a hockey rink and dresser, we'll be good to go. But that's not gonna happen.
You go ahead and do that.
Sorry, if I win the lottery, there'll be a hockey rink and dresser.
Oh, well, no.
We'll be talking about
Write that
that
down.
budget deficit.
If Trevor.
It's only 6 numbers. Any questions about middle school athletics?
Do you feel like the registration fee that we have is fitting, is?
I think it's fitting, and if kids can't afford it or families can't afford it, we waive it. So, I think for what they pay to go to traveling and do all that, $50
Oh,
is
absolutely.
very fortunate to have that.
Do you think you lose some kids to this because of the clubs or whatever they're called they're in? Or do they?
There's a lot for them to do.
Yeah,
I mean, I go around and recruit track kids and AAU basketball and volleyball and playing soccer, and as long as they're doing something.
yeah.
I still think that middle school sports is hanging out with your friends and having that social part. I have not had anybody offer a D1 scholarship or something great yet, but there's families.
Hope you're not
out
counting
there.
on it.
I'll let you know. That happens.
Do other area schools have middle school soccer?
No, but that's a club.
That's okay.
There are middle schools that have, they've talked about golf,
Okay,
they've talked about tennis,
okay.
so. I don't know if I don't think we're in a position to add those sports, and that's, at this level. Anyways,
But middle school sports is funded differently than
Correct.
high school, so.
I don't think there's enough around the area that would make that, the one thing that did come up was girls wrestling exclusive, and have a season before, in November and December, separate from the boys. St. Croix Falls is pushing that, but everybody kinda tabled that for maybe 5 years down the road.
So right now you're wrestling where there's male and female.
Correct. That's what everybody's doing in the area so far.
Awesome, that's a lot of kids.
We're good?
But girls can do basketball and volleyball, right? Boys can do basketball and football.
Correct.
They all-
So, yeah,
Top 3 are fall.
top 3 are fall seasons, and then
Middle 3 are.
usually like the boys will have basketball season before the Christmas break, and that's when the girls' traveling season is. And they flip flop,
Perfect.
wrestling seems to go on forever.
Love it.
Okay. So we have, for mine, so,
Hi, I'm
what, oh, sorry, I'm Jeff Hahn. The athletic director, I took over last spring and barely hanging on to, the roller coaster, but it's going okay. I'm glad, I heard that, now Mr. Schultz has a retirement plan. It sounds like you guys are in need of a 4K and K bathroom attendant.
It's a binding
I
signature
need to keep
contract.
busy, so if I retire, I'll stand outside the bathroom.
That's, there you go, there you go. Sorry, Walmart for that. So,
Thanks, Jeff.
yeah, no problem. Always looking out for you, buddy.
got toilet paper.
Okay, right, that's right, that's right. So a couple celebrations that we have first. We had, our athletic participation, we ended up with 298 kids that are, involved in sports at OHS. Now that ends up being about 540 registrations. So a lot of these kids are multi-athlete, multi-sport athletes. And then of course I had to break down by the grade. We had 82 ninth graders, 74 10th graders.
Are you a math
I was gonna say, because
Yeah,
you're
right.
not a
I
math
know,
teacher.
I know, right. And then our 12th graders, they make up 22% of our athletes. So our participation is strong. We all know that high school athletics end up being a pretty good predictor of high school success, and keeps them engaged. We have some kids right now that are that really flourish when they're in sports, and then they struggle when they're out. So the more we can keep them involved, the better we can do that. Some achievements, we had 3 middle board conferences this year so far. We had 3 WI regional championships, we had 2 sectional championships, we had 31 state participants so far, and that's without the track coming in. And then we had 24 first and second team all conference selections. So that's not counting the honorable mention group. So we've had some nice success so far, and we're looking at a successful spring as well. If you guys have not come and seen Eliana Udine run hurdles, it is crazy. It's nuts. So definitely come and check her out on the track.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Back one more. Do those numbers, next slide,
This one?
include, your
Powerlifters?
power lifters and BFS kids?
Not BFS, no,
But it
but
does include.
most of these most of our athletes are the BFS pieces
Fair.
as well.
Yep.
And it does include our powerlifters.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Because this is our registrations that we capture, and we do have to register for power.
Perfect.
And I do think
Even
it's
though it's a
important to
club.
I think it's important to point out that having 31 students that go to state is not common. Like, I think in Osceola, we think that kids going to the state competition is like a normal thing. There are many, many school districts that send 0 kids to state for multiple years in a row. So that's impressive.
It's a fun group. Any other questions for these first two? All right, moving on. We brought in Premier Sports Psychology. This is in conjunction with Mental Health Matters Club. Claire Patterson and Ms. Stiles worked on that. Dr. Stiles worked on this. They talked about resiliency, growth mindset, and how to handle pressure. Okay, how to handle the stress of being an athlete. She came in and did about an hour presentation with our kids. Fairly well received by our kids. She was a little bit nervous, so she lost a couple kids, but I think she reeled them back in eventually. So that was a good thing, even if it just validates that it's an issue, that this is an okay feeling that this pressure not feeling real good is an okay thing to not feel good about that. And then they talked about some tools about how to handle that. So I thought that was a nice message for our kids to hear. We have selected Marcus Gilbertson and Maddie Newton as our Middle Border Conference Scholar Athletes. Next Wednesday is the banquet. Each school in the Middle Border Conference selects 2 athletes that kind of balance that academics and that athletic prowess. And these are 2 well-deserving members here. Let's see. Filling a need. So like Coach Schultz said, it's always interesting to try to fill up the referee slots. And so Holly Johnson runs a intramural class at the high school. And that FIAD class, during that, they practice officiating. And they also then take the WIA test and become a certified official. So this year, what we did is we ended up getting them to shadow. This is Tread and Stacia. They shadowed alongside some of our other referees. They shadowed twice. First, you just ran right alongside of them and didn't blow the whistle, but kind of mimicked the calls and went everything through. And by the end of the season, I ended up hiring both of them to do a couple C games and a couple JV games, and they really did a nice job. So
I wonder if other schools do that.
they have not, but they inquire a lot about it. Yeah. Holly gets a lot of inquiries about how that works. And she does a really fantastic job of making that class fun. It's still about playing the sport and the intramural thing, and then they're learning alongside in the official part. She talks about when other people come in, they want to do a lot more classroom work, and so then their participation numbers go down in that situation. So, and it's definitely working. Both these young people are pretty good officials. It was fun to watch them grow. From not blowing the whistle at all the first time out there to now kind of making some calls and having to handle some kids that don't agree with the calls, and some coaches, but not really. The coaches really did a nice job. There was some eye rolls, but there was not any verbal abuse. So it was good. That was a really neat thing that I got to watch. I really can't take credit for any of it at all. It was all her. So
Is this the first time you've had students become referees?
This is our first time, yep. Now, as far as while they're in school, a shout out to one of our past graduates, Adam Bjornstead, just officiated at the Division 4 game, I think, at state.
Yeah.
So at the state boys tournament, he just officiated there, so.
2005 graduate, so.
Yep.
He's been a long time.
He's been a long time official.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, some goals. All right, so I'm in the transition piece, some things that I have not kept up on. One of them would be I gotta do a banner audit. Some of these things are not correct up here, or they are correct or incomplete. So I have to go back through and I'm gonna have an afternoon with Ron McIntyre and have a talk. I'm gonna have an afternoon where we go through all those nice complete set of annuals over there and try to come up with a complete set of these accolades. I don't know how I'm gonna get those stickers off yet to try to get them back in order, but we'll figure something out. Probably some Google or some Google or something, I don't know. All right, Huddle Fan. So a lot of people don't know about the Huddle Fan, but our games are actually streamed automatically through our schedule, through our little huddle cameras in the gym. So the white camera that's on the side of the press box outside and the white camera that's in our gymnasium, that is a smart camera that follows the game without any kind of direction from a human being. So what that allows us to do is those games automatically stream directly to a website called Huddle Fan. Huddle is our video storage system that we already have. So this is all live stream. This is in addition currently to the We Are Network. So this side doesn't have any commentary, doesn't have anything else, any of the bells and whistles yet. It has the ability to add those. It also has the ability to add some opportunities for advertisements. So, and maybe some capture some ad revenue for some of the people that are in the area. Is there a chance that, you know, if Bill's advertises with We Are gets or pays that money to the Bill's pays that money to We Are. If we capture some of this ourselves, we get to capture this ad revenue, and Bill gets to have it on our site, so it's coming to our community all the time. The nice thing about this also is there's a Huddle network, so even if it's an away game, when their camera turns on, it pipes to us automatically. So even away games wouldn't have the commentary or anything, but you still get to peek in there through that website. There are some times that we turn that live stream off. One of those times would be WIAA playoffs, because that is their contract with NFHS. So we would have to actually pay them money for us to stream them, because they have the rights to all playoff games. We Are Network pays NFHS for that. We don't, so we have to turn it off or we're supposed to turn it off for playoff games. And this is an app, pretty easy to get through on your phone. I'm not a Facebook user, so when We Are used to be just Facebook, I really struggled finding that and getting that to work. Now that We Are is on YouTube, it's a little bit better. But this I go right to fan.huddle.com and type in Osceola, and all of our games pop up. So exploring that as an option in the future. All right, and then after the conversation that we just all had, I don't know if I should put this slide up, but we'll see. All right, so some immediate needs that we have facing us for facilities. Our tennis courts, if you look at our tennis courts, these 4 and this one are new, even though that one looks really bad right now, but that's just water on there. These 4 were original, and they are essentially unplayable. The frost has heaved on the 2 end courts. The frost has heaved the posts out so that we can't put a tight net on it. So, but the courts are actually really nice, not really nice, they're okay. And then the 2 where the posts are good, the cracks are huge and the frost is heaved, and it actually has gotten to the point where those are two different levels in the playing surface. So the crack has not just separated, it is now separated, and now you have the actual rips. Tennis courts are gonna crack. So this is one of those things where we have looked at some solutions, and there are higher cost solutions and lower cost solutions. There is not a cheap solution, unfortunately. So most of the solutions to do a renovation would include raising these up further away from the water table. So we're looking at a considerable amount.
And how many playable courts do we need to host 8?
If we wanna host any kind of playoffs or any kind of sectionals or anything like that, we would need 8. The hard part about this, so we're limited, WIA limits you to a certain number of contests, and some of those contests can be multis, and some of those contests, so you have a maximum number of contests and you have a maximum number of multi-team contests. The problem here is that all our home contests can only be one team, can only be against one other team. So we never max out our multi-team events. So when Altoona hosts their multi-team, their kids get 5 matches in the tournament. We get 1 or maybe 2 if I bring in a team prior and after, if we do a triangular. But we can't host multiple consecutively. So, without taking the kids out for 2 consecutive days or something.
I'm assuming middle school kids are not coming and using our tennis courts for PE class. I mean, it seems like a pretty sizable walk from.
They used to.
They used to, yeah.
I think they still go there.
And high school, I mean, you're still using them during the day for weather permitting, of course, but yes. Okay.
Yeah, we still use these during the day, actually during the
It's
summer.
not like just for a sport.
Correct.
Or
I had
maximize our
classes.
use of
The
them.
community is out here using them during the summer. Now that the weather gets a little bit nicer, you'll see people out there, as soon as the nets go up, there are people out playing. So, especially with, the town courts being gone now, the ones that used to be by Hiawatha, those are all gone. So now these are only tennis courts there. So, there are maybe some monies out there where we can maybe partner with this village and say, hey, this is a village resource, and a school resource, can we walk into this and maybe partner?
Did you ever double up and put pickleball lines on there?
So
If
what's
that's
it?
a community resource?
That's good. It turns out that tennis people and pickleball people are mortal enemies, it turns out. So.
That is not true.
Becky, that is not true. I love them both.
So,
Sure you.
so
We're making it big right
USTA,
now.
we've actually got USDA, talking to Mark Omley today, he said we could get a $50,000 USDA grant as long as we don't put any pickleball lines in there.
Oh my goodness.
That is in the grant. As soon as you put any other lines on there other than tennis lines, you are not eligible for the grant.
They are mortal enemies.
They are. So,
But at least there's like grant options that help.
yeah, there could be some grant options. Yeah, so we'll be exploring that. So right now, 4 of the 9 are unplayable. We are having a tennis camp on them, for the middle school, when you guys were talking about that. So, Mark is pretty forward thinking on trying to get numbers up a little bit. So. And then we got Freshman Field. Turf was installed in 2013. So we did see some savings as far as turf is cheaper to maintain than grass. You don't have to put any fertilizer on it, you don't have to water it, you don't have to do anything like that. It turns out that, and you can play in it longer. So, turf costs about $6.25 an hour of use, where grass costs about $12 an hour for use. So turf is definitely a better option in the long run. But unfortunately, we're right now at the point where we're at the life expectancy. So we're looking at 2028. And just being on it, when we first got the turf, you would get things popping out. You'd get strands that would pop out. You'd get them on your feet, but they wouldn't be very often. They just kind of lay there. You get beads in your shoes all the time, those little rubber nuggets. Then I would say in the last season, we really saw a lot of it. The previous season, we saw a little bit. The UV protection has worn off on the strands, and now the strands are actually brittle and they're snapping. So now when you walk down there on the turf, you're actually getting static electricity is collecting strands, half strands of that turf onto your shoes. So it's been, you walk up with fuzzy shoes all the time. So we're looking at having to replace that, and we can probably see that the degradation of the turf is gonna accelerate now in these last 5 years of its life. We did have a turf person come out and talk to us in the fall. We're looking at, it's about $5 a square foot to tear out and put down new turf, which seems not too bad, right? That's 100,000 square feet over there, so that gets to be a big number. So, the new turf is coming out, our field turf has now come up with a new technology where they just lay a new turf over the top. So they leave the old turf on the bottom, and they just put a new one. They put some more sand over the top of this one, they put a new turf over the top. I'm not sure how the goalposts are still 10 feet off the turf surface then, but we'd have to move something in that situation. But that's another lower, it's a little bit lower cost. Those are really the two facility needs that we're working on. A little WIAA update. Oh, is there any questions on this? Okay, little WIAA update. So there's some votes that are going in for the next year. One is to see if they can, cross country has asked to be exempted from the competitive balance situation, because they're saying that teams so Phillips cross country, the girls moved up a division because of their competitive balance. We're gonna see St. Croix Falls have some issues too. And then the boys didn't move up, so now that means their boys and their girls teams are in 2 different divisions. So they're claiming, they're saying we would like to be exempt from that. Definitely competitive balance has got some challenges and some issues, and they're gonna be working through them. So we are gonna go to vote as to whether we should exempt cross country or not. The other one would be, the big one is they wanna open up summer contact completely. So you can coach as much as you want during the summer. Currently, you can only assemble for specific coaching, specific sports stuff for five days. They don't have to be consecutive, but they can be 5 days. Now the proposal is that now you can open that up, and there's only 1 dead week around the 4th of July that you can't coach your teams. Benefits to that is it levels the playing field, because it's pretty hard to police that. So if you wanna coach all summer, you can. Definite downfalls to that would be now you gotta keep up with the Joneses. You're asking your coaches to be there more, or they're feeling pressure to be there more. You're asking your kids to be there more. And I don't know if that's necessarily where we wanna go. That committee was also supposed to look at shortening season lengths. However, they did not look at that part. So currently, I'm a no vote on the open contact until they come through with their shortened seasons.
I mean, going from 5 to all open seems
Correct.
like quite the drastic change. Like
As
you
is
could
it-
even just go 10 or 15. I mean, like, it seems like quite the.
I think really it came down to they didn't wanna police it.
Yeah.
So everybody's trying to skirt the rule anyway, so that's the deal. So that meeting will happen later in April.
So.
Go ahead.
In high school, I had the privilege of being athletic director's assistant and helping him teach and help do scheduling. And I know that you're both in the thralls of scheduling for next year, contests and things. Is there any big changes coming up? I mean, you talked about the St. Croix Falls, the division contest ones having to move up, and I fully understand that. But I mean, it doesn't look like there's any big conference changes or anything big like that. That's really throwing a big loop, and nothing.
No. Altoona coming in has really, extended our travel. And when we first came in, it was kind of a handshake agreement that we were gonna only travel there on Fridays, and that's no longer, it just doesn't work that way. They're quickly gonna be the largest school in the middle border. They will outgrow us very soon, yes.
How about the double headers? Cause that's been a new thing too. that.
For softball and for.
Well, no, like even with basketball, we were doing like
Yeah.
one team was coming in, we were doing boys and then
Yep.
girls or vice versa. And
Yep.
that was a new feedback on that.
I don't know if I'm doing that, but.
It's me.
Oh, okay. So next year we don't have, we have one set of doubleheaders, and we're not gonna doubleheader with that. Just because the conference kind of schedule shifted in 2 different directions. So, I don't know, I think the feedback about doubleheaders is always mixed. I think our officials really like it. They come in and work, come to one spot, and they work 2 games, and get double pay, you know, so I know the next day they're probably pretty sore. But it's been fun. So anyway, in general, the job has been fun, a lot of learning going on. Mr. Newton has definitely left everything nice and set up for me, so that's good. I can just kind of ride the wave that he's got going on. So it's been nice. And I know how to find it. That's right. And there's lots of questions like, how do I, and then you can answer it right away.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Questions for Jeff, questions for Trevor? Thank you very much. Let's move on to general admin reports. Let's start with Julie Bender.
Okay. All right, just a few things tonight. So, newsletter is there as a 4K4 system, and then I wanted to just talk about the different community engagement events that we had this year so far. So really just trying to open our doors and bring people in as much as we can. So we've had wellness night, literacy night. We just finished up with our 4K roundup, donuts with grown-ups. Our spring open house for both buildings was last night. We have our 3rd grade wax museum. We have our concerts. Just doing as much as we can to get people involved and to bring community members in. So it's been great. It's a lot of fun. And once we do it once, that we're able to keep everything, and it's much easier the next year and the next year. So celebrating that. For our 4K roundup, kind of switched that around a little bit this year, and we ended up just changing the name to 4K roundup versus the child development days, and keeping it just completely focused on celebrating the hallway at the elementary school where all the 4K classrooms are. And we had a saddle where kids could sit and take their picture because it was a roundup rodeo. And it was a lot of fun. We had Woody on the t-shirt for the 4K roundup piece, and they had little goodie bags, and it was just, it was fun to bring them in, and our 4K staff did an amazing job in the classroom, and the kids rotated through little activities, and they were able to observe them and to catch some things that we needed to catch. So, yes, originally our thought was about 82, so it's about 82 to 87 registered 4K students right now. Again, none of that is ever set in stone, but that's where we're at. So a good range between 82 to 87. At the elementary school, and Hunter's probably glad he's not here, because at one point I talked about the main doors, how we're now secure at the elementary school with our main doors and the vestibule and all the things. And we have now extended that to our kids club doors. So those kids club doors this year, which will continue, it's on the other side of the building, northeast, west, east, on that one side, and east. And right there, it is now moving forward exactly like our main entrance. So it's locked, the families will go in, and the second set of doors are now locked. And it's exciting because yes, it's a vestibule, it's smaller, so Lori and I are working shoulder to shoulder and figuring out how we can make sure that that's manageable for her staff, and just keeping everything locked there. So we'll do some trial and errors this summer for sure. Our summer school numbers, OAS, as of yesterday, we have 125 students. OES, we have 127 students for right now. Those numbers continue to go up every day. And then our forward exam for our 3rd and 4th graders, it's coming up, along with the next round for our Act 20 diagnostic tests, and that's 4K3. So this is now the round at spring where we involve our 4K students.
Awesome.
That's what I have.
Thank you.
Darren Keane.
Good evening, everyone. So we've got a link to our March newsletter that you can look at when we have some free time. Pride update, so our staff is given 1190 Pride Awards, 240 stop and things, which are those corrective tickets. Our ratio is 4.8 to 1. Our goal is 5 to 1. Prior to spring break, we were up to 5 to 1. And I think some of the routines were lost a little bit over spring break, so we're working at regaining that. So that's an update on that. Just some shout outs, some of our staff members and some of the events here. So we had our talent show right before spring break. We had 22 acts and there were 38 students involved in those, and then a staff dance. It's just nice to see kids in a different light. See some kids that may not shine academically, shine in front of their peers and the rest of the school. So big shout out to Renee Saluski, who organized our Wellness Week, our talent show. The staff dance was
Recorded, maybe?
well, there's some good pictures, and there's one coming out in the April newsletter. And I heard a few kids their comments, they were very impressed with the moves that Mr. Scholl's has.
Still got it.
So he was right in front, and he still got it, and he's staying alive. That was the tune they did. It was good. So
Prove it.
he does have some moves.
I'd have to stretch for a while.
We had 3 of our 7th and 8th grade math students participate in the Wisconsin State Math Counts competition in Sheboygan. And that's pretty intense to get through to do that. And Cassie Leash, our 8th grade math teacher, did a lot of work with those kids, so a shout out to her. Very impressive that we sent 3. James Gillespie runs our 6th grade math masters, and he had 14 kids. There were 3 teams of 6th graders that participated in the regional math masters in St. Croix Central. So just some highlights of our staff being involved with kids and helping them excel. Our end of 3rd quarter is this Friday, so we have grades coming up next week, and then we just have one more quarter. Forward exam, summer school information has been sent out to families. Our deadline for summer school is April 4th. Just a little bit on the forward exam. So I met with our team leaders to come up with a schedule. Our 8th graders will be taking the forward exam next week. They take the test, so there's 4 subjects, but it's 10 separate tests. That's a lot, and it's a lot of stress on the kids. And so the 8th grade team came and they said, we did this last year, we'd like to run a different schedule where we have some fun events, some team building, change it up, just so it isn't so intense. And one thing I love that they brought to me is they did a survey of the kids last year, and that displayed that the kids loved a schedule like that, where we do get it done within a week, but yet there's some fun things involved, and it just helps to kind of ease that pressure and stress. So that was pretty impressive. So that's a shout out to our 8th grade team. It speaks volumes when they are asking kids about stuff, and then we're going to use that to make good informed decisions. And then our 5th, 6th, and 7th will be taking the math and language arts the following weeks on the same days. So our 8th grade just kind of has that special setup because they're taking so many tests. That's all I got for you.
Questions for Dan? Alright. Man, Maya.
All right, I don't have a lot for you. I linked in the March newsletter, and then just like everyone else has shared, we are in testing season right now, so gearing up for our ACT and 10th grade forward test. They'll take place on April 9th, so be here very shortly. And then I've been working with our library media specialist consultant. She's not on site, so I'm like the liaison between district staff members here and her, where she works currently as well. And so we're just trying to clean things up from before and get everyone reorganized with how we're doing things a little bit differently. The unique part about common school funds is that there's actually money to spend. We talk about like having to cut things, but I'm struggling to, like, what do I spend money on? Because it's very specific what you can spend money on. So just trying to build and review what do we have and what do we need to keep adding in for kids. So we worked a lot about at the lower elementary buildings with makerspace, some STEM and makerspace things at the middle school, and then just the way that our kids can present at the high school, utilizing our library a little bit differently. So working to build some of those pieces into our system too. So I've learned a lot from Kate and appreciate her. It's really hard to not have her physically here, but we're doing it. So it's been good. Any questions about that?
I think they would read really a lot better on new tennis courts.
I can order tennis books.
Last week, so on March 18th, we started our trimester 3. So we're in a week and a half of the new trimester. As we ended Tri 2, we also had a very huge successful sports season, as Jeff was talking about, but also with our club seasons as well. And some highlights we had: academic decathlon took second place in their division at state, led by Mr. Barrett. Our ice fishing team, as you probably go downtown and see the banner, we're state champs again, 3 times in 5 years or 6 years. And Jeff here with powerlifting had 2 individual state champs at the state powerlifting meet, and Dylan Kester and RJ Gaffney, which is a pretty great accomplishment. Plus, he can speak to, they had nationals last week. How did our kids do there, Coach Ron?
Yeah, they collected some hardware, so that was kind of nice. RJ Gaffney set the USA Powerlifting age group of 16 to 17 world record squat and the world record total. So, those were
What should you squat?
617 pounds.
And where was nationals?
It was back in Appleton.
Okay.
So it was same spot as
It was Myrtle Beach last year, right?
it was Myrtle Beach 2 years ago. It was Baton Rouge last year.
Oh, yeah.
Myrtle Beach was really nicer than Appleton.
That's your opinion.
And then the last thing we got coming up, prom, April 26th, we started selling tickets this week.
Awesome. Jan?
Yeah, I just have a couple things, and one's just listed, the board approved the increases for staff, so you have the teacher and support staff pay scales in your packet, so take a look at those. We've now been able to create them, which is going to help us get out teacher contracts and the support staff letters. I will say it's appreciated that we have done, the board has approved early, because I talked to colleagues, we're one of the only ones that have approved increases and are pretty much settled on that, so that's nice. We are entering the 4th quarter for us fiscally, because as you know, our fiscal year runs July 1st to June 30th. So with that comes the closing out of the 24-25 year. We'll start talking about purchasing deadlines and what that looks like, and then starting to plan for year-end closing and audit time.
Great stuff. I'll keep it really quick because you've had a lot of Jesse time today. School safety conference was absolutely amazing. It was a great opportunity, felt really safe. When I pulled into the parking lot, it was all police cars. So I was like, wow. A lot of school resource officers, so made a lot of really great connections. There's a list of the events that I attended, learned a lot, will bring back a lot. It's top of mind. And because it was a scholarship, it made it that much better. School resource officer update, the village board did approve a partnership with us, so the position has been posted. And it was pretty great because Chief Bach was saying that he was getting lots of calls even before they approved it for interest in the SRO position, which is different what they thought. So that's fantastic. And we will partner in the hire process. So it's a together always, so some of the teammates will go. Community connections update, as you're aware, postcard went out a few weeks ago. Goal is to create connections. So we have 27 people who are non-parents, non-staff, who would like to get emails from me. Who doesn't want more emails, right? So I think that's fantastic, and they'll get district-specific emails. So an example will be when I send out the family communication about what's happening here, they will get that as well, and I think that's awesome. And then we've also, on there was the updated budget and finance page. And Brian Marks looked at analytics for me, and we've had 100 people click on the page and stay there for at least 2 minutes. And of course, I'm like, is that me as I'm updating, or is that actually? So I'm not exactly sure. And then also there's some flyers that have been posted around town, so that people who maybe don't check their mail or they threw away the postcard. But again, the key is they have to use the QR code, and not everybody knows how to use the QR code. So we recognize that, so that's why we're bringing them around, and please sign up. And lastly, the Joint Committee of Finance. So can you just click on that one? Thank you, Tricia. Just so you know, Shannon and I will be going to Hayward. I'm also looking at trying to recruit some students to go. That's okay, if you don't have it, that's all right. So it's April 28th. Yeah, that's a whole lot of you there. It's okay. Sorry. No, that's okay. So the closest is Hayward. very close. But I also am gonna recruit some students to potentially go and speak, because I know if I was sitting there listening and wanted to hear about school, I would wanna hear from students. And Shannon and I will both try to speak, you get 2 minutes, it's from 10 to 5, sounds like a delightful opportunity. But it's important, because we keep talking about it's at the state, so the state needs to hear from us. And lastly, Kaisa, you earned a prize from WASB for being super great. Woo!
Yes, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. Guess what, year, next year.
I'd like to add to the list of, like, what we were talking about, things coming up, since we have a good public showing here tonight. The weekend of April 11th, we have the Osceola, in our auditorium, the high school musical of Catch Me If You Can. Please go to that. I don't know if they're charging for tickets or if it's free will donation, but free, or if you wanna donate, great. Please just show up. These kids they've been working their tail off for a while.
It starts Thursday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, so please come that weekend. If you got a free couple hours, go support those kids. They're killing it.
And shout out to Ms. Wickland for jumping in and
Oh, yeah.
filling that role,
Right.
because that's not an easy role to just step into.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Let's take us to item 4, improving our instructional strategies supporting student learning. Item A was review the CISA 11 shared services contract for 25-26.
Okay, Shannon and I had an opportunity to look through the contract, and we compared it to last year, and it's up on the board, so you can see the purple pen is saying this is what we believe we should continue moving forward with. And you can see where it's a renew or it's purchase new, you'll notice it's pretty much exclusively renew. We will continue working with CISA for OT, but like when you look at like audiology services and deaf and hard of hearing and OT and PT, those are required pieces that we need to have in place. A success you'll see on their school site will only be hiring a .5 position, instead of this year we have a .1, plus we have a director position, because you'll see on your consent agenda, we have a person that we're gonna be able to onboard that will be able to do face-to-face with us and be one of our employees, so that'll be great. If you have any questions about the shared services, and this will come to you at the next board meeting, for approval. I just want to have a chance to talk to you first.
Does CISA know that we're not gonna meet the timeline of March 22?
They do,
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
and there's not even a late charge.
All right. That brings us to item 5, which is engaging continuous improvement of student support systems and programs, board oversight for the Millicent Lindell High School donation.
I just wanted to start a conversation and hope at our, April meeting, we can make a specific, perhaps motion on how do y'all want to manage the donation. We do not have still at this point, the final numbers, because taxes needed to be done, and then we're gonna get the final swoop. But for me, the clarity and accountability, and I'm thinking back to school forest, school farm, like, I believe we should make a motion and take action on how we want that to go. Do you as a team want to be the final decision makers, or did you want some other model? I would, I recommend, sounds, for me to have the school board be the people who make the final decision makes the most sense. But we do have people in the community that have reached out that says, well, I wanna be on that decision-making team. And that just makes things complicated, so to be able to have a clear line, and then once we get that established, then we can talk about what are the next steps in making decisions with those dollars. Because again, right, they're tagged to the high school, they're not tagged to our district.
Kudos to you on the news article and piece. That was awesome. It brought a lot of light, and it was wonderful to turn on the news and to see it on Millicent's face there, because it this is such a moment of extreme pride for our community. So I think it's gonna take some thought and collaboration in deciding how we wanna do this, and
As it should.
so.
And I can just tell you, it has been a delightful journey for me personally, the people who have reached out and shared, and I have handwritten notes now from Millie, where she's put stuff in people's yearbooks. I've made a new friend, a 1947 Osceola school district grad, and we've made such good friends on the phone that Sean and I actually went over there and met her in person and spent an hour and a half with her, and she had all kinds of things to share. and it was delightful. And then her and Shaw got pictures taken together as two grads. It was just so heartwarming, and it's a really beautiful thing to learn about a person who had such a significant impact on us now, but the high school had such a significant impact on her in her past. So I'd just like you to think about it, and then
We'll come back.
perhaps, yeah, to have, because it just needs to be something in the board minutes that's gonna say who's gonna be the approver.
So do we currently have any of the funds,
Mm-hmm.
and they're set into what type of account, or?
We worked with our, people that we had worked with before in regards to when we get the capital project referendums, because they want you to maximize the amount of interest that you're gonna get within IRS standards, because school districts have a limit that they can have. So we worked with those same people to structure what that would look like in order to gain the most amount of interest that we can while they're invested, so they're invested.
And separate from all of our monies?
We have, the operating dollars that we use on a day-to-day basis, we have locally, right? So as a local bank for that, this is not a local bank, this is an investment firm that we are working with, that we have that money in.
Is that something we can designate as a board in the future, like, is that kind of part of what we'll come back to in April, like, just thinking like how we made sure the forest, ag money stayed like separate and stuff?
Well, you did, like
You
when
did
this money
do that?
came in,
Yeah.
you're like, this goes in a
Okay.
separate interest-bearing account, so that's how it ended up in a separate interest-bearing account that has
But
its
we
own.
don't need to do anything further than that yet. Yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, I think deciding who is the ultimate decision maker is the logical step.
Okay.
All right, it is, 6